The retreat of the hegemony fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, the largest invasion force ever assembled had been turned back by a species that most civilizations considered primitive. The implications were staggering. Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the assembled Galactic Council 3 weeks after the battle. The massive chamber contained representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had never seen a human before. They watched her with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed fear. "Honored delegates," Chen began, her voice calm and steady. "I come before you not to threaten or make demands. I come to offer something that has never been given before in galactic history, a warning." The chamber fell silent. Warnings typically came from powerful species to weaker ones. The idea of humans warning the galaxy seemed backwards to most delegates. You spent decades studying our weapons and our ships. You analyzed our military tactics and our technological capabilities. You thought you understood what made humanity dangerous. Chen paused and looked around the chamber. You were wrong. Fleet Admiral John Roberts appeared on the main display, via holographic transmission from Earth. Behind him, the recovered wreckage of alien ships served as a stark reminder of the recent battle. The hegemony fleet that attacked Earth represented the combined military might of 40 civilizations, 10,000 ships with weapons that could destroy planets. By every logical calculation, humanity should have been wiped out in hours. The chamber stirred uneasily. Many delegates had contributed ships to that fleet. They remembered the confident predictions of swift victory. Instead, you lost 4,000 ships to a force 1/50th your size. Your survivors are telling stories that sound like myths. Human ships that fought on after suffering critical damage. Human crews that coordinated without communication systems. Human soldiers who turned impossible situations into victories through decisions that made no tactical sense. Roberts gestured to the wreckage behind him. This debris represents something you need to understand. Every species you have conquered fought you with the strength they always had. We fought you with strength we discovered in the moment we needed it. Dr. Sophie Turner materialized as a second hologram. As humanity's leading expert on xenopsychology, she had spent years studying alien behavior patterns. Now she was here to explain why those patterns had failed so completely. Distinguished delegates, your military planners made a fundamental error. You studied humanity as if we were like other intelligent species. You assumed that our evolution followed the same pattern as yours. She activated a display showing brain scans from multiple species. Most civilizations develop intelligence as their primary survival mechanism. When you face threats, your higher brain functions analyze the situation and formulate logical responses. This works well against predictable dangers. The display changed to show human brain activity during combat. Humans evolved differently. We retained our animal instincts while also developing intelligence. When threatened, we do not choose between thinking and instinct. We use both simultaneously. This means, Dr. Turner continued, that humans can respond to threats in ways that have never been seen before. We adapt not just our tactics, but our entire nature to survive new challenges. President Nathan Clark joined the transmission from the White House. As Earth's elected leader, he was tasked with explaining humanity's position to the galaxy. The battle for Earth taught us something important about ourselves, he said. When you tried to destroy us, you awakened something that had been sleeping in our genes for thousands of years. You reminded us that we are not just another civilized species. We are predators who learned to build spaceships. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. The word predator carried uncomfortable implications for species who had never seen themselves as prey. This is not a threat, Clark continued. This is a fact you need to accept. Humanity does not want to conquer the galaxy. We do not seek to rule over other species. But we will not be conquered, controlled, or eliminated. Any attempt to do so will result in consequences you are not prepared for. Commander Sarah Blake appeared as the final speaker. Her ship had been one of the most heavily damaged in the battle. Yet she had not only survived, but turned her crippled vessel into a weapon that destroyed 3 alien cruisers. "I want to tell you what it felt like. To fight your fleet," she said. "When your weapons hit my ship and my crew started dying, something changed inside me. I stopped thinking like a naval officer and started thinking like something older, something that came before civilization and rules and logic." The chamber was completely silent now. Every delegate leaned forward to hear her words. In that moment, I did not care about military doctrine or diplomatic consequences. I cared about protecting the people who trusted me to keep them safe. I turned my ship into a weapon not because I was trained to do it, but because some part of me that you can never study or predict knew how to do it. Sarah's image looked directly into the camera, addressing every delegate personally. That same instinct exists in every human. We can be peaceful. We can be reasonable. We can be your allies and trading partners. But if you push us into a corner, if you threaten our families and our homes, you will face something that cannot be calculated or predicted. General Maria Santos provided the tactical analysis that would reshape galactic military thinking for centuries. The hegemony fleet failed because it fought humans as if we were another logical species. You brought overwhelming force, superior weapons, and perfect coordination. Against any other species, you would have won in hours. She displayed tactical recordings from the battle. Instead, you found yourselves fighting an enemy that adapted faster than your computers could calculate. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Human crews that should have been demoralized became more dangerous. Human tactics that should have failed somehow worked. "This is not magic," Santos explained. "This is evolution. Humans spent millions of years surviving by adapting to threats that had never been faced before. When you attacked us, you activated survival mechanisms that are older than your civilizations." The final message came from Dr. Emma Carter, speaking from the rebuilt research station where humanity's first contact with aliens had been studied. "The galaxy has a choice to make," she said. "You can accept that humanity is different and learn to work with us as equals. Or you can continue to see us as a problem to be solved through force." She gestured to the empty space where the Zephyrian ship had once threatened Earth. "Every species that has tried the second option has learned the same lesson. Humans become more dangerous when you try to make them helpless. We become more coordinated when you try to divide us. We become more determined when you try to break our will." The Galactic Council has spent thousands of years managing conflicts between logical, predictable species. Humanity represents something new. We are chaos that can think. We are instinct with technology. We are the prey that learned to hunt. Ambassador Chen returned to the podium for her closing statement. "We offer you partnership, trade, and friendship. We will share our knowledge and learn from yours. We will contribute to galactic civilization and help solve problems that threaten all species." Her expression hardened slightly. "But understand this. We will never again be victims. Any species that threatens humanity will face not just our weapons or our ships, but our nature itself. And our nature is to survive by becoming whatever we need to be." The chamber remained silent for long, minutes after the human delegation ended their transmission. Finally, the council speaker called for a vote on the resolution that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council with a permanent security veto. More importantly, a new law was passed that would be known as the Human Accords. No member species could take military action against humanity without unanimous council approval. The galaxy had officially acknowledged that humans were too dangerous to fight and too valuable to lose. The prey had inherited the stars not through conquest, but by proving that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that does not know it is supposed to lose. The hegemony invasion fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system exactly 72 hours after the evacuation order. 10,000 ships from 40 different species moved in perfect formation toward Earth. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the alien armada approach. Her tactical computer calculated the odds of human victory at less than 1%. Any rational species would have surrendered immediately. "All ships, this is Admiral Wei," she broadcast to the human fleet. "We are outnumbered 50 to 1. Enemy vessels have superior weapons and shields. According to every military manual ever written, we should retreat immediately." She paused and looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were scared, but they were not broken. Something burned in their eyes that the aliens would never understand. "We will not retreat. We will not surrender. We will show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home." The Hegemony Fleet Commander, Supreme, General Vorthak, had studied every human military engagement for the past 50 years. He knew their tactics, their weapons, their strengths and weaknesses. This battle would be different from the small skirmishes that had confused other alien forces. This time, overwhelming superiority would crush human unpredictability through sheer numbers. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target their largest ships first. Disable their command structure." The first wave of alien ships moved toward the human fleet like a wall of death. Their weapons were more advanced than anything humanity possessed. Their shields could absorb massive damage. Their tactics had conquered hundreds of worlds. Colonel Danny Mitchell commanded a small group of patrol ships on the outer edge of the human formation. His 12 vessels faced 300 alien warships. By every measure of military logic, his ships should have been vaporized in seconds. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Danny's ships began moving in patterns that seemed random, but somehow worked. They did not follow standard attack formations or retreat procedures. They moved like a school of fish avoiding a shark, turning and diving in coordinated movements that no one had planned. "Sir, how did you know to dodge that plasma burst?" asked his pilot. Danny realized he had no idea. His body had reacted before his mind processed the threat. It was as if some part of him could sense the alien attack patterns before they happened. The same thing was occurring throughout the human fleet. Captains were making tactical decisions that saved their ships without understanding why. Pilots were performing maneuvers they had never trained for. Gunners were hitting targets that should have been impossible to track. Dr. Rachel Adams watched the battle from her evacuation ship and tried to understand what she was seeing. The human fleet was not fighting like a military force. They were fighting like a living organism responding to threats through pure instinct. Ships that lost communication with command did not become helpless. They became more dangerous. Cut off from orders and battle plans, human crews began operating on the same survival instincts that had kept their species alive for millions of years. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake found herself in command when her ship's bridge was damaged by alien fire. She had never commanded a vessel in combat before. The tactical situation was hopeless. Her crew was injured, and her weapons were barely functional. Instead of surrendering, Sarah felt something ancient awaken in her mind. She stopped thinking about military doctrine and started thinking about protecting her pack. Her damaged ship began moving in ways that confused the alien attackers. She used debris from destroyed vessels as cover. She turned her ship's emergency systems into improvised weapons. The aliens had expected human ships to become easy targets once they suffered critical damage. Instead, wounded human vessels became unpredictable and dangerous in ways that defied all military logic. On the flagship of the Saurian battle group, General Korthak watched his tactical display with growing alarm. His forces had surrounded a group of human destroyers and should have destroyed them easily. Instead, the humans had somehow turned the encirclement into a trap. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Unknown, General. They appear to be coordinating without any communication signals. Our sensors detect no command transmissions between their ships." Korthak stared at the display. The human ships were moving like a flock of birds. responding to threats as if they shared a single mind. When one ship was attacked, the others reacted, instantly to protect it. When an opportunity appeared, they all moved to exploit it simultaneously. This is impossible. No species can coordinate fleet movements without central command. Sir, recommend immediate withdrawal to regroup. Korthak looked at his losses and felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of warfare: fear of an inferior enemy. All ships, fall back to secondary positions. The retreat of the Saurian battle group created chaos in the alien formation. Other species saw the withdrawal and began to question their own tactical situations. The perfect coordination of the hegemony fleet started to break down as individual commanders faced human opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move. Private Kevin Barnes was trapped in the damaged hull of a human transport ship when alien boarding parties broke through the airlock. He was alone, wounded, and armed with only a maintenance tool. Every rule of military engagement said he should surrender. Instead, Kevin did something that would be studied in military academies for generations. He ignored his tactical situation and focused on protecting the civilian passengers hiding in the cargo bay behind him. The alien soldiers had advanced weapons and combat armor. They outnumbered Kevin 20-1. They should have overwhelmed him in seconds. What they found instead was a human who fought with the fury of a parent protecting his children. Kevin used his knowledge of the ship's layout to turn the environment into a weapon. He collapsed bulkheads to separate the boarding party. He vented atmosphere to disable their equipment. He used maintenance systems to create improvised traps. When reinforcements finally reached his position, they found Kevin unconscious but alive. The alien boarding party had retreated. The civilians were safe. The story of Kevin's defense spread through the human fleet within hours. It became a symbol of something the aliens could not understand. Humans who fought not for victory or glory, but for each other. Admiral Wei received reports from across the battlefield that painted the same picture. Human forces that should have been crushed by superior numbers were holding their ground through pure determination. Ships that should have been destroyed were somehow still fighting. Crews that should have panicked were working together with frightening efficiency. "Status report," she called out. "Alien forces are pulling back to regroup," her tactical officer replied. "Our losses are 30% below projected casualties. Enemy losses are significant." Wei looked at the tactical display and realized something incredible was happening. The human fleet was not just surviving against impossible odds. They were winning. On the Hegemony flagship, Supreme General Vorthak studied the battle reports with something approaching panic. His carefully planned invasion was falling apart. Human forces were responding to his tactics in ways that made no sense, but somehow worked. "Sir, we have lost 40% of our forward elements. The humans are using coordinated tactics that our computers cannot predict." Vorthak stared at the tactical display. The humans were not following any known military doctrine. They were improvising strategies that should not work but somehow did. Worse, they seemed to be getting stronger as the battle continued. "Signal all commanders," he ordered. "We are dealing with something outside our experience. Recommend immediate withdrawal to minimum safe distance, sir. A retreat now would be seen as defeat by an inferior species." Vorthak looked at his losses and made the hardest decision of his military career. "Signal the withdrawal. We need to rethink everything we know about human warfare." As the Hegemony fleet began its retreat from Sol system, a message went out to every species in the galaxy. The largest invasion force in history had been turned back by a species that refused to fight by the rules. The emergency signal from Ambassador Veltar reached the Galactic Council 6 hours after the failed attack on Earth. Within 12 hours, similar reports began flooding in from across human space. Each story followed the same disturbing pattern: advanced alien species encountering humans and discovering that their proven tactics simply did not work. Admiral Lisa Grant sat in her office on Mars Station, reading reports that made her both proud and worried. The Coranian Mining Consortium had tried to claim asteroid belt territory that belonged to human miners. The Coranians were a peaceful species who had successfully negotiated resource agreements with 47 different civilizations. They approached conflicts with logic, mathematics, and carefully calculated compromises. The human miners had responded by turning their mining equipment into weapons and chasing the Coranian ships out of the system. "How did civilian miners defeat military escort vessels?" Lisa asked her aide. "The report says they used mining charges as torpedoes and somehow modified their ore processors into particle beam weapons. The Coranians say it should have been impossible with that equipment." Lisa shook her head. The Coranians were not wrong. Converting mining tools into military weapons should have taken weeks of careful engineering. The human miners had done it in 4 hours while under attack. 3,000 light-years away, Commander Alex Turner was dealing with his own impossible situation. The Vorthan slavers had attacked New Hope Colony with sleep gas that could knock out an entire city. The gas was specifically designed to work on human physiology. The Vorthans had tested it on human prisoners and knew exactly how much was needed. Alex arrived at the colony 6 hours after the attack to find the Vorthan ships fleeing the system. "What happened here?" he asked Colony Administrator Janet Brooks. Janet's hands were still shaking, but her eyes were bright with something that might have been pride. "They gassed us. Hit the whole colony with enough sleep agent to knock out everyone for 12 hours. But you're awake." "Some of us never went down. Others woke up after 20 minutes instead of 12 hours. The ones who stayed conscious fought back. The ones who woke up early joined them." Janet paused. "Alex, they turned our farm equipment into war machines. I watched a teenager use a crop harvester to destroy an alien gunship." Alex stared at the damage reports. Vorthon slaving operations were professional military actions. They had been capturing other species for 300 years. They did not lose to farmers with improvised weapons. How many casualties? 17 injured. No deaths. The Vorthans lost 4 ships and retreated with heavy damage. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Ben Cooper studied the growing collection of encounter reports. As a xenopsychologist, his job was to understand how different species thought and behaved. The human responses he was reading challenged everything he knew about intelligent behavior. The pattern was always the same. Aliens would attack humans using tactics that had worked perfectly on other species. Instead of responding predictably, humans would adapt in ways that seemed impossible, not just improvising new solutions, but becoming something they had never been before. A trading dispute with the Zelon merchants had turned into a firefight when the Zelons tried to use economic pressure to force humans out of a profitable shipping route. Humans had no experience with interstellar trade warfare. They should have been easily outmaneuvered by species who had been trading for millennia. Instead, human cargo pilots had somehow coordinated their movements across dozens of star systems without any central command. They moved like a flock of birds responding to threats as if they shared a single mind. The Zelans found themselves facing not individual ships, but a single organism that changed its behavior faster than they could adapt. The Hegemony High Command convened an emergency meeting on their capital world. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss what they were privately calling the human problem. Each delegation brought stories that sounded more like myths than tactical reports. General Korthak of the Saurian Empire stood before the assembly and delivered his report with visible reluctance. "My forces encountered human patrol ships in the Vega system. We outnumbered them 10 to 1. Our ships were larger and better armed. We had complete tactical superiority." The assembly waited for him to continue. The humans somehow turned the battle into a running fight through an asteroid field. They used the environment in ways our tactical computers had never predicted. Instead of fighting us ship to ship, they made the asteroids into weapons. Our larger vessels became disadvantages. instead of advantages. "How many ships did you lose?" asked the council speaker. 60% of the fleet. The humans suffered minimal casualties. A murmur of unease ran through the assembly. The Saurian Empire had conquered half the galaxy with those same tactics. And ships. Commodore Ellen Price reviewed the intelligence reports from her flagship in the Centauri system. Every human military commander was receiving the same data. Alien species across the galaxy were sharing stories about encounters with humans. The stories should have been frightening. Instead, Ellen found them oddly reassuring. The galaxy was learning to be afraid of humanity, not because humans were more technologically advanced or more numerous. They were afraid because humans did not behave the way intelligent species were supposed to behave. When faced with superior force, humans did not surrender or negotiate. They adapted. When confronted with impossible odds, they did not calculate the logical response. They became whatever they needed to be to survive. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Mitchell commanded a small outpost on the edge of human space. His job was to monitor alien activity and report anything unusual. What he was seeing in the intelligence files was very unusual indeed. The hegemony had tested human responses in carefully controlled situations. They sent small raiding parties to attack isolated human settlements. Each raid was designed to gather data about human military capabilities and psychological responses. What they discovered was that humans in small groups were more dangerous than humans in large groups. Cut off from central command and formal military structure, human soldiers began operating on pure instinct. They coordinated without communication. They adapted without orders. They turned every disadvantage into an advantage. "Sir," his communications officer approached with a message pad. "Priority signal from Fleet Command. All border posts are to increase alert status." Danny read the message and felt his stomach tighten. The hegemony was massing the largest invasion fleet in galactic history. Their target was obvious: Earth and the human colonies. "How many ships?" he asked. "Intelligence estimates over 10,000 vessels from 40 different species. This is bigger than anything the galaxy has ever seen." Danny stared out at the stars and wondered if humanity was about to face its greatest test. The galaxy had tried to understand humans through small encounters and limited conflicts. Now they were preparing to test humanity with overwhelming force. Dr. Rachel Adams worked late in her laboratory on Luna Station, analyzing the psychological profiles that alien species had compiled about humans. The files made interesting reading. Every alien civilization described humans as unpredictable, irrational, and dangerous in ways that defied their understanding of intelligent behavior. What the aliens saw as flaws, Rachel recognized as humanity's greatest strengths. Humans did not respond to threats the way other species did because humans had evolved differently. Most intelligent species developed logic and reason as their primary survival tools. Humans had kept their animal instincts while also developing intelligence. The result was a species that could think like scientists and fight like predators. When threatened, humans did not choose between rational analysis and instinctive response. They used both simultaneously. Rachel's computer chimed with an incoming priority message. She opened it and felt her blood turn cold. The message was from Intelligence Command, classified at the highest level. All research stations to begin immediate. Evacuation procedures. Long-range sensors have detected massive alien fleet movements toward Sol system. Estimated arrival time, 72 hours. All non-essential personnel to report to evacuation points immediately. Rachel looked out her laboratory window at the Earth hanging in space below. Somewhere down there, 8 billion humans were going about, their daily lives, unaware that the largest invasion force in galactic history was heading their way. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you pushed humanity too far. Rachel suspected they were not going to like the lesson. The Zephyrian neural weapon fired at exactly 14:32 Earth Standard Time. It was invisible, silent, and according to their tests on 17 other species, completely effective. The weapon sent out waves of energy designed to scramble the electrical signals in organic brains. Victims would become confused, frightened, and unable to think clearly. Most species simply collapsed and waited to be captured. Ambassador Veltar watched the human ship on his main screen and waited for the crew to fall into helpless panic. In 30 seconds, the humans would be completely under Zephyrian control. In 30 minutes, Earth's defense codes would be downloaded and the invasion fleet would move in. 30 seconds passed. The human ship continued on its course. Increase. Power to the neural disruptor, Veltar ordered. Power at maximum, Ambassador. The weapon is functioning perfectly. Veltar stared at the tactical display. The humans should be writhing on the floor by now. Instead, their ship had just raised its shields to maximum power. On the bridge of the UES Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison felt something trying to crawl inside his head. It was like 1,000 insects buzzing behind his eyes. His vision blurred. For a moment, and he felt a wave of confusion wash over him. Then something deeper kicked in. Something that had kept his ancestors alive when saber-toothed tigers stalked them in the dark. The rational part of his mind that might have tried to analyze the situation went quiet. What remained was pure, focused survival instinct. Jake's vision cleared. His reflexes sharpened. The fear and confusion vanished, replaced by a cold, deadly calm. "We're under attack," he announced. His voice was steady and hard. "All weapons. Target the alien vessel. Fire at will." Lieutenant Kate Sullivan felt the alien influence hit her like a sledgehammer. For a split second, panic flooded her mind. She started to shake, started to lose control. Then her training took over, but not the way the aliens expected. Instead of becoming helpless, Kate became dangerous. Her fingers flew over her console with mechanical precision. She locked weapons onto the Zephyrian ship and began firing before her conscious mind even processed the command. The part of her brain that might have hesitated about shooting first was temporarily offline. Only the warrior remained. Commander. Ryan Hayes was in the armory when the neural weapon struck. He felt his thoughts scatter like leaves in a hurricane. The world became fuzzy and strange. According to Zephyrian calculations, he should have collapsed in confusion. Instead, Ryan moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. His body operated on pure instinct while his conscious mind struggled with the alien interference. He grabbed weapons and started running toward the bridge. He did not think about rules of engagement or diplomatic consequences. He thought about protecting his ship and his crew. The neural weapon had not made him weak. It had made him feral. In the engineering section, Lieutenant Amy Foster felt the attack like needles in her brain. The aliens had designed their weapon to create maximum psychological chaos. What they had not planned for was what happened when you cornered a species that had evolved to fight its way out of impossible situations. Amy's panic lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then her survival instincts engaged with a clarity that terrified her. She began systematically destroying every connection between the human ship and the alien vessel. She did not think about the diplomatic implications. She did not worry about seeming hostile. She simply eliminated every possible way the aliens could get into her ship's systems. Her hands moved without conscious thought, following patterns burned into human DNA by millions of years of evolution. The aliens had expected the neural weapon to make her helpless. Instead, it had awakened something that had been sleeping in her genes. On the Zephyrian ship, panic was beginning to spread among the crew. "The humans are not responding correctly to the neural disruptor," reported the tactical officer. "That is impossible," Veltar snapped. "The weapon has never failed." "Sir, they are firing on us. Multiple hits to our forward shields." Veltar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans should be unconscious by now. Instead, they were fighting back with a coordination and efficiency that made no sense. Their attack patterns were random and chaotic, but somehow they worked. "Return fire," he ordered. "Disable their weapons systems." The Zephyrian weapons were more advanced than anything humanity possessed. Their targeting systems were perfect. Their energy output was precisely calculated. By all logic, the human ship should have been crippled in seconds. But logic was not. What the Zephyrians were fighting. Dr. Emma Carter felt the alien weapon attack her mind like acid. Her thoughts became jumbled and strange. The world took on a dreamlike quality that made it hard to focus on anything. Instead of becoming helpless, something primal awakened in her mind. Emma had spent years studying predator and prey relationships. Now she was experiencing them firsthand. The rational scientist in her went quiet, replaced by instincts that were older than civilization. She began moving through the ship with purpose, checking on crew members and coordinating their response to the attack. She did not think about first contact protocols or diplomatic relations. She thought about survival. The neural weapon had not broken her ability to function. It had stripped away everything except her most basic drive to protect herself and her pack. Captain Morrison watched the alien ship on his screen and felt a strange calm settle over him. The neural weapon was still attacking his mind, but it no longer mattered. He had stopped thinking like a diplomat and started thinking like a hunter. "Target their power systems," he ordered. "Bring them down." The human weapon struck the Zephyrian ship with surgical precision. The aliens had expected random, panicked fire from confused humans. Instead, they were facing coordinated attacks that seemed to anticipate their defensive moves. "How are they doing this?" Veltar demanded. "The neural disruptor should have made them unable to function." His science officer studied the readings with growing alarm. "Ambassador, the weapon is working perfectly. The human brain patterns show massive disruption. But instead of becoming helpless, they appear to be operating on pure instinct. That is impossible. Sir, it appears that when we attack their higher brain functions, we leave their survival instincts completely intact, and their survival instincts are extremely sophisticated. On the Liberty's bridge, the crew worked together with frightening efficiency. They did not speak much. They did not need to. Some part of their minds was operating below the level of conscious thought, coordinating their actions like a pack of wolves bringing down a larger predator. Kate Sullivan's targeting was perfect. Ryan Hayes's tactical decisions were flawless. Amy Foster's defensive measures were impenetrable. Emma Carter's coordination of the crew was seamless. They were not thinking about what they were doing. They were simply doing what millions of years of evolution had programmed them to do when faced with a threat to their survival. The Zephyrian ship shuddered under another barrage of human weapons fire. Veltar realized with growing horror that his perfect plan was falling apart. The neural weapon that had conquered 17 civilizations was not just failing against humans. It was making them more dangerous. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "massive damage to our primary systems. The humans are targeting our critical infrastructure with impossible accuracy." Veltar looked at the tactical display and felt something he had never experienced before: fear of a supposedly inferior species. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Emergency withdrawal. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance." "But sir, the invasion plan." "The invasion is cancelled. Signal the Galactic Council immediately. The humans are not what our profiles indicated." As the Zephyrian ship limped away from Earth, Ambassador Veltar composed the message that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. Priority transmission to all council members. Human conquest attempt has failed. Neural weapons ineffective. Species exhibits unprecedented adaptation to mental attacks. Recommend immediate reclassification of threat level. Do not engage humans in direct conflict. Repeat, do not engage. The message would reach the Galactic Council in 6 hours. It would take them much longer to understand what it really meant, that the galaxy had just encountered a species that became more dangerous when you tried to make them helpless. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the alien ship grow larger on the main screen. The vessel was beautiful in a way that made his stomach turn. It looked like someone had carved a mountain from pure crystal and taught it to fly. Light bent around its edges in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Sir, they're requesting permission to dock," said Lieutenant Kate Sullivan from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake caught the slight tremor. In her words, he had known Kate for 3 years. She never got nervous about normal things. "Tell them to hold position," Jake said. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me Admiral Chen on a secure line." The alien ship had appeared in Earth orbit 6 hours ago. The Zephyrians called themselves peaceful explorers. They wanted to share technology and knowledge with humanity. Their messages were polite and formal. Everything about their approach screamed friendship and cooperation. So why did Jake feel like he was staring at a loaded gun pointed at his planet? The Zephyrians had been watching Earth for 40 years before making contact. Their files on humanity were thick with details about human weapons, military tactics, and defense systems. They knew how many nuclear missiles Earth had. They knew the specifications of every warship in the human fleet. They had studied human battle strategies from every war in recorded history. What they had not studied was the strange feeling Jake Morrison got in his gut when something was wrong. Dr. Emma Carter moved to the observation deck and pressed her face against the thick glass. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though this was her first time seeing any. The Zephyrian delegation was supposed to beam over in an hour for the official first contact ceremony. Emma watched the alien ship and frowned. Something bothered her about the way it moved. The ship adjusted its position every few minutes in tiny, precise movements. It was too perfect, too controlled. Real explorers would show some variety in their flight patterns. These movements looked like a military formation trying to appear casual. "Captain," Kate called out, "the Zephyrians want to change the meeting location again. They say the original coordinates have too much background radiation." Jake walked over to Kate's station. "How many times have they changed the meeting spot?" "This would be the 4th time, sir." Jake stared at the tactical display. Each proposed. Meeting location was closer to Earth than the last. The aliens explained this as concern for human safety, but Jake's instincts screamed otherwise. "Belay that," he said. "Tell them we'll meet at the original coordinates or not at all." The bridge. Crew exchanged glances. They were making first contact with an advanced alien civilization, and their captain was being difficult about meeting arrangements. From a diplomatic standpoint, Jake's behavior made no sense. From a survival standpoint, it was the smartest thing he had ever done. Commander Ryan Hayes reviewed the security protocols one more time. He was responsible for protecting the human delegation during the historic meeting. The Zephyrians had provided detailed scans of their ship, showing no weapons or hostile technology. Their delegation consisted of scientists and diplomats. Everything looked safe on paper. Ryan had been a soldier for 15 years. He had fought in 3 wars and survived situations that should have killed him. He stayed alive by trusting 2 things: his training and his gut. Right now, his gut was telling him that something was very wrong with this picture. "Sir," his aide approached with a tablet. "The alien ship is requesting we disable our shields during the meeting as a gesture of good faith." Ryan looked at the message and felt his blood go cold. "Absolutely not. In fact, bring us to yellow alert." "Sir, shouldn't we check with Captain Morrison first?" "The captain gave me authority over security matters. We go to yellow alert now." On the Zephyrian ship, Ambassador Veltar reviewed the human responses with growing confusion. According to their psychological profiles, humans were curious and eager for technological advancement. They should be excited about meeting a superior alien civilization. Instead, the humans were acting suspicious and defensive. "The human captain refuses to change the meeting coordinates," reported his tactical officer, "and their security chief has raised their alert status." Veltar studied the data again. Human weapons were primitive compared to Zephyrian technology. Their ships were slow and clumsy. Their military tactics were crude and predictable. There was no logical reason for the humans to be cautious. "Perhaps they are simply nervous about first contact," Veltar said. "Proceed with the plan. Their primitive instincts will not interfere with our superior strategy." Lieutenant Amy Foster worked in the engineering section of the Liberty. She was responsible for the ship's computer systems and communication arrays. The Zephyrians had sent over detailed technical specifications for establishing a communication link between the ships. Everything looked standard and safe. But Amy had noticed something odd in the alien code. Hidden deep in the communication protocols were what looked like backdoor access routines. The aliens explained these as translation subroutines. But Amy had written enough code to recognize a Trojan horse when she saw one. She called Captain Morrison directly. "Sir, I think you should see this." Jake arrived in engineering 5 minutes later. Amy showed him the alien code on her screen. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" "The Zephyrians want us to install this communication software. They say it will help with translation during the meeting. But look at this section here." Amy highlighted several lines of code. "This isn't translation software. This is designed to access our main computer and download files." Jake stared at the screen. He did not understand computer programming, but he understood betrayal. "Can you block it?" "Already done, sir. I've isolated their communication requests to a single terminal with no network access." Jake patted Amy's shoulder. "Good work. Keep monitoring their signals." Dr. Emma Carter continued watching the alien ship from the observation deck. She had studied animal behavior for 20 years before specializing in xenobiology. The Zephyrian ship reminded her of something, but she could not figure out what. Then it hit her. The ship's movement pattern was identical to the hunting behavior of pack predators. The constant position adjustments, the attempts to get closer to the target, the coordinated timing of their communications. She had seen the same patterns in wolves stalking deer. Emma ran to the nearest communication panel. "Bridge, this is Dr. Carter. I need to speak with Captain Morrison immediately." "This is Morrison." "Captain, I think we're being hunted. The alien ship is exhibiting classic predator behavior patterns. Everything about their approach suggests they see us as prey, not potential allies." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Kate Sullivan was tracking the alien ship's movements. Ryan Hayes was coordinating security protocols. Amy Foster was monitoring their communication attempts. Emma Carter was analyzing their behavior patterns. Each of them had noticed something wrong. Each had trusted their instincts over the official. Reports and diplomatic protocols. None of them could explain exactly why, but they all felt the same thing: danger. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "We are upgrading to red alert. This is not a drill. All personnel to battle stations." The crew of the Liberty scrambled to their positions. Weapons came online. Shields reached full power. The ship prepared for battle against an alien vessel that had shown no hostile intent and possessed superior technology. Jake Morrison had just made a decision that would save not only his ship, but his entire planet. He had chosen to trust human instincts over alien promises. It was the most important decision in human history.